California generates more wealth than the entire United Kingdom. Its tech giants control global information flow. Silicon Valley alone has created more billionaires than most countries combined. Yet here's what nobody's talking about. 187,000 people sleep on California's streets tonight. Major corporations are fleeing at record rates, and the very engine that powered America's innovation supremacy for 50 years is now cannibalizing itself from within. This isn't just California's problem. This is a preview of what happens when extreme wealth concentration meets systemic failure. The fifth largest economy on Earth is teaching us a brutal lesson about modern capitalism. And if you have investments, a business, or simply care about the future of Western economies, you need to understand exactly what's happening here. Because what started as the American dream's greatest success story has become its most disturbing paradox. Let me show you exactly what I mean. I'm James Whitfield from Faultline Economics. While others chase headlines, we examine the systems that actually shape history, geography, demographics, and economic fundamentals. Today, we're analyzing California's strategic collapse. This is strategic clarity in a complex world. Let's turn to the strategic map. California didn't randomly become the world's innovation epicenter. It was engineered through the largest peacetime government investment in history. During the Cold War, the Pentagon poured $9 billion annually into R&D. That's 10% of the entire federal budget, flowing primarily into California's aerospace and electronics sectors. Stanford University, under Frederick Terman's leadership, transformed itself into a military-industrial complex, disguised as an academic institution. They created Stanford Industrial Park in 1951, establishing the physical nexus between government funding, academic research, and private enterprise. This wasn't free market capitalism. This was state-sponsored industrial policy on steroids. Now, here's where it gets interesting. California had one unique legal advantage. It banned non-compete clauses. While Boston's Route 128 locked engineers into single companies, California's talent flowed freely. Knowledge became a liquid asset. Engineers left Fairchild Semiconductor to found Intel. Intel's people founded AMD. This created what economists call a knowledge spillover effect. Innovation spreading like wildfire through proximity and job hopping. The result? By 2024, California's economy reached $3.9 trillion, larger than India, larger than France. But beneath this staggering success, tectonic plates were shifting. Factor 1. The Great Divergence. The first fracture line is economic bifurcation. California now has America's worst income inequality. The data doesn't lie. Households in the 90th percentile earn $336,000 annually. The bottom 10th percentile, just $30,000. That's an 1:1 ratio, worse than during the Gilded Age. But here's the critical insight everyone misses. For every high-paying tech job created, 4 service jobs emerge: cleaners, drivers, baristas, all serving the tech elite. These workers can't afford to live where they work. In Santa Clara County, you need to earn $57 per hour just to afford a median apartment. The barista making your venture capitalist's coffee, they're earning $18. This isn't sustainable economics. It's feudalism with smartphones. The strategic synthesizer in you already sees where this leads. When your workforce can't afford to exist, your economy can't function. Stanford economists call this the hollowing out effect. The middle class disappears, leaving only princes and peasants. Factor 2. The housing weapon. Now, we reach the system's most devastating failure point. California faces a manufactured housing crisis. I use the word manufactured deliberately. This isn't market failure. It's political engineering. 82% of California's residential land is zoned exclusively for single-family homes. Let that sink in. In the midst of a housing crisis affecting millions, it's literally illegal to build apartments on 82% of available land. The median home price in San Francisco? $1.5 million. Bay Area median? $1.2 million. Here's what they won't tell you. Existing homeowners, who vote at higher rates than renters, deliberately restrict supply to inflate their property values. They use environmental reviews, historical preservation claims, and neighborhood character arguments as weapons to block development. The state needs 1 million new affordable units. Last year, they approved 110,000 total units, most of them luxury. Governor Newsom himself called this NIMBYism, the thing destroying our state. But here's the strategic reality. Those benefiting from the crisis control the political machinery meant to solve it. Senate Bill 9, supposedly ending single-family zoning, it created fewer than 100 units in its first year because of poison pill amendments demanded by homeowner lobbies. The data confirms the connection. Every $100 increase in median rent correlates with a 9% increase in homelessness. This isn't correlation, it's causation. Factor 3. The visible collapse. This brings us to the most visible symptom of systemic failure. With 12% of America's population, California contains 28% of its homeless. More critically, it has 49% of all unsheltered homeless, people literally sleeping on streets. Let's connect the dots. A UCSF study found 90% of California's homeless became homeless while already living in the state. They're not migrants seeking services. They're economic refugees displaced by housing costs. The median income before homelessness? $960 per month. These aren't drug addicts or mental patients primarily. They're workers who couldn't keep up with rent increases. San Francisco spends $1.1 billion annually on homelessness. That's $14,000 per resident in taxes. Yet the crisis worsens. Why? Because they're treating symptoms while the disease spreads. Building a $700,000 per unit supportive housing project while allowing market rents to displace thousands more is like bailing water from a sinking ship without patching the hole. Now, here's where geography becomes destiny. These tent cities aren't hidden in industrial zones, they're in downtown business districts, outside corporate headquarters, along tourist corridors. The visual collapse of public order creates a psychological tipping point. When executives step over bodies to reach their offices, when employees refuse relocations due to safety concerns, when clients won't visit, the economic machine starts breaking down. But all of this hinges on one deciding factor: capital flight. The moment California's dysfunction costs more than its innovation delivers, the exodus begins. And that moment has arrived. Tesla, Oracle, Charles Schwab, Hewlett-Packard, the roster of fleeing companies reads like a who's who of American business. Elon Musk's relocation to Texas alone represents a $70 billion wealth transfer. These aren't emotional decisions, they're mathematical calculations. Now, let's connect the dots. What do you think is California's point of no return? Is it when tech companies can't recruit talent due to costs? When the tax base collapses from departures? Or when innovation itself moves elsewhere? Drop your analysis in the comments. I read every strategic insight you share. The mathematics of Exodus are brutal. California's top income tax rate, 13.3%. Texas and Florida, 0. For a tech founder cashing out $100 million in stock options, that's a $13.3 million difference. California ranks 49th in business tax climate. The regulatory burden adds 30% to operational costs compared to Texas. But here's the strategic miscalculation California made. They assumed their innovation monopoly was permanent. That proximity to Sand Hill Road venture capital and Stanford talent was irreplaceable. The pandemic shattered this assumption. Remote work means a startup can incorporate in Delaware, bank in New York, hire developers in Austin, and never set foot in California. This connects directly to our analysis of why China has already lost the new Cold War. The same innovation dynamics destroying California are actually America's hidden advantage against Beijing. You can find that breakdown in the card above and in the description. It reveals how domestic failures can determine global power shifts. So what does this mean for the global balance of power? California won't collapse. That's hyperbole. But its monopoly on innovation is ending. By 2050, we're looking at a distributed model. Austin becomes the hardware hub. Miami captures fintech. Boston retains biotech. Seattle dominates cloud computing. California remains significant, but no longer singular. It becomes Britain after the empire, still wealthy, still important, but no longer the undisputed center of the world. The state's own economic projections show subnational growth rates through 2027. UCLA Anderson forecasts persistent 5.3% unemployment, the nation's highest. The strategic lesson is clear. Extreme wealth concentration doesn't create sustainable prosperity. It destroys it. When teachers, firefighters, and nurses can't afford to live in the communities they serve, social contracts shatter. When innovation profits flow to the few while costs burden the many, political stability erodes. California's paradox reveals modern capitalism's fundamental challenge. Innovation creates winner-take-all dynamics that ultimately undermine the very societies that enable innovation. The state that gave us the iPhone now gives us a masterclass in systemic failure. Now, if you want to understand the mindset driving this exodus, the calculation that led Elon Musk to abandon California after building Tesla there, Walter Isaacson's biography, Elon Musk, is essential reading. Or, in this case, listening. Isaacson had unprecedented access during the exact period Musk decided to leave California for Texas. You witnessed the breaking point firsthand. The moment when California's dysfunction finally outweighed its advantages for the world's richest man. You can listen to it completely free with Audible's 30-day trial. Links in the description below. It's 12 hours that explain more about California's collapse than any economic report. The future isn't written, but the blueprint is there for those who know how to read it. California's trajectory from Golden State to cautionary tale holds critical lessons for every developed economy grappling with inequality, housing crises, and social fragmentation. If this kind of strategic analysis helps you understand our complex world, subscribe to help us create more content like this. Remember, beyond the headlines, there are systems. Beyond the noise, there are signals. Stay strategic.